Hello, my name is Leslie Hyam, Accreditation Program Specialist with the GAC program, and I would like to welcome you to the revision to GAC Eligibility Requirements and Accreditation Standards presentation. Please take advantage of the chat and Q&A windows during this session. We'll have an additional 10 minutes of live chat at the end of the presentation. Today's session will assist university programs in understanding more about the recent revisions to the GAC standards. We will review the reasons for the revision, as well as the objectives, process, key changes, and give a transition overview. To review and provide in-depth information regarding the reasons and objectives for the revisions, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Andy Gale, Vice Chair of the GAC Directors and Professor, Management of Projects Research Theme Leader at the University of Manchester, School of Mechanical Aerospace and Civil Engineering in the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Leslie. As GAC Vice Chair, I was part of the core team that worked on these revisions for the past 3 years. I believe that the final product truly represents the most current thinking in the management of projects field, and I'm proud to have been part of this process. GAC's objective in this process is to ensure that the GAC eligibility requirements and accreditation standards reflect educational quality with a focus on student achievement of program learning outcomes and the continuous improvement of accredited programs. As the field of project management has expanded considerably since the last release of the standards in 2008, another key goal of this revision process was to include the most current thinking in the field of project, program and portfolio management. Revisions to the GAC eligibility requirements and accreditation standards have been developed over the past 2.5 years, 2013 to 2015. During this process, the GAC directors engaged with project management academic and industry stakeholders around the world in face-to-face and virtual meetings, culminating in a public call for comment, where stakeholders reviewed draft standards and made comments prior to final adjudication by the GAC directors. So, what are the key differences between the 3rd and 4th edition of the GAC Accreditation Handbook? The eligibility requirements and accreditation standards in the GAC Accreditation Handbook 4.0 have been revised to more clearly define key accreditation elements and provide clarity to prospective, applicant and current GAC accredited programs. The GAC Accreditation Handbook 4.0 focuses on assurance of learning and student achievement of the 3 GAC core areas of focus for learning outcomes. These outcomes address generally accepted practices, knowledge and competencies found within the discipline of project, program and portfolio management and documented in professional standards.
Thank you, Andy. I'm now going to go in depth into the primary areas addressed in this revision. One key area is broadening the focus of GAC accreditation to include project, program, and portfolio management. GAC recognizes that the field of project management is continually evolving, and GAC standards and processes need to reflect this forward movement. By specifically including project, program, and portfolio management in its standards, GAC is meeting its mission of advancing excellence in project management education worldwide. And additionally, it is playing a larger role in the field by ensuring that GAC accredited educational programs prepare students to meet the current and anticipated needs of business and government organizations for qualified professionals. Academic programs that offer degrees or awards in advanced topics in the field may now be eligible to apply for GAC accreditation. GAC is also moving from a prescribed list of task-oriented learning outcomes to 3 comprehensive core areas of focus for program learning outcomes. These concepts encompass the discipline of project, program, and portfolio management while honoring programs' unique contexts. In making this revision, GAC recognizes the dynamic nature of the field and the unique challenges that programs have to provide academic curricula that integrates practice and theory while offering programs that are forward-thinking and innovative. Let's take a deeper look at the three core areas of focus. Area of Focus 1 is technical expertise. This is defined as management of projects to meet needs within constraints with reference to professional standards and guides. Area of Focus 2 addresses professional behavior, defined as ethical and culturally aware stakeholder engagement, communication, leadership, and teamwork. Finally, Area of Focus 3 provides a holistic view of the management of projects field within organizations with strategic awareness, which is defined as contextual awareness and knowledge of strategic and operational drivers required to inform decisions and deliver sustained competitive advantage. Another area addressed in the revisions is levels of academic achievement, such as bachelor's, postgraduate, and doctoral degrees or awards. Whereas in the past, GAC's accreditation activities were focused on postgraduate degrees, now GAC has clarified expected levels of academic achievement at the bachelor's, postgraduate, and doctoral level. This means that each academic degree or award is now required to demonstrate achievement of program learning outcomes reflecting appropriate levels of academic achievement. This refinement allows for more differentiation in the academic arena and encourages programs to raise the bar on their academic offerings. GAC has also addressed the focus on student achievement of program learning outcomes. In the past, GAC focused on specific tasks that a graduate from an accredited program must take responsibility for. Now GAC has a focus on curricula that facilitates active student engagement in learning. That means there's an increased focus on student summative experiences based on the processes, knowledge, and competencies acquired throughout the program. Students are not only learning theory, but also experiencing collaborative, integrative activities and environments designed to reflect workplace practices to improve student professional performance. With these revisions, it is anticipated that graduates of GAC accredited programs will be ready to take an active role in the workplace upon graduation. Another key area addressed in the revised standards is a focus on program continuous improvement. In the past, GAC did recognize continuous improvement as part of a program's processes. It was an important piece of the accreditation process, but not a key driver to GAC accreditation. Now GAC recognizes that continuous improvement is necessary to respond to stakeholder feedback, program performance results, and the dynamic and evolving nature of the discipline. GAC now has dedicated a specific accreditation standard, D7 Program Improvement, to address this important aspect of a quality program. GAC requires programs to provide a description of their continuous improvement process and timeline, and provide strong evidence of use of this process to achieve their individual improvement goals. As to the policies surrounding GAC accreditation, GAC has moved from a maximum 7-year accreditation cycle to a maximum 5-year cycle. This allows for better monitoring of currently accredited programs and reflects accepted standard practice within the specialized accreditation community, such as AACSB, EPAS, and many others. No, this is not a reenactment of the Beatles making that historic crossing on Abbey Road. Rather, it's a graphic to show that we're now going to take a look at a crosswalk of the current GAC eligibility requirements and accreditation standards versus the previous edition. This slide speaks to the eligibility requirements that a program must meet in order to apply for GAC accreditation. In its letter of intent, the program demonstrates that it has met all of these requirements. The revision to this section has been to simplify and provide clarity in the language to allow programs to know what the requirements are and what is required in order to become eligible. The only addition to this area is C4, Administrative Structure and Academic Leadership. Although this requirement was in the previous standards, GAC has made this requirement more evident in the current revision. GAC believes that a program must have adequate, sustainable academic leadership in the form of a competent program administrator who is focused on the program's goals and objectives in order to support an academic program. Of these first three GAC accreditation standards, D1 and D3 are fairly self-explanatory and have a direct relation to the previous standards related to program mission and information in the public domain. D2, Curricula and Core Areas of Focus for Program Learning Outcomes, is where some of the most wide-ranging changes have occurred. In the past, this area would have been addressed by the C26, C27, and C28 standards, and in many ways they still are. But as noted earlier in this presentation, there is now a focus on student achievement of program learning outcomes, as well as a differentiation in levels of academic achievement. D4, Faculty and Staff, as well as D5, Students, speaks to many of the criteria from the previous standards. They have been reordered, and in some areas that stood alone in the past, such as student selection and library resources, they have been moved to a more appropriate area, and that is support for students in GAC Accreditation Standard D5. Of course, D6, Financial Resources, is much the same as the previous edition, as an institution must demonstrate that it is a viable and supportive institution and supports its applicant programs. But D7, Program Improvement, is one of the larger enhancements, which was noted earlier in the presentation. Although it does contain many of the criteria from the previous edition, this new standard focuses not only on a program's continuous improvement process, but how it implements this process on a cycle to ensure that the program is refreshed and meets the evolving nature of project, program, and portfolio management, and teaching and learning practices. Now that we have given an overview of the revisions and a crosswalk of the connection between the old standards and the new, I would like to speak to key dates in the release of the revised standards. On 1 December 2015, the GAC Accreditation Handbook 4.0 was made available on the gacpm.org website. As of 1 March 2016, all new applications for GAC accreditation must use the eligibility requirements and accreditation standards found in the 4th edition of this handbook. Applicant programs are encouraged to immediately begin using the revised eligibility requirements and standards in the 4th edition. It is also important to note that as of 1 March 2016, all new applications and those who have not received approval to progress into the self-evaluation report phase of the process must use the revised standards in the GAC Accreditation Handbook. Programs in the self-evaluation report process may base their responses and evidence on either the 3rd or 4th edition of the GAC Accreditation Handbook. Any program whose letter of intent was accepted prior to 1 March 2016, choosing to use the 3rd edition of the GAC Handbook, must have their self-evaluation report completed and approved by the GAC directors by 15 September 2016. Self-evaluation reports not completed and accepted by that 15 September date must be resubmitted using the eligibility requirements and accreditation standards noted in the 4th edition of the GAC Handbook. Currently, accredited programs also have responsibilities related to the revision of the GAC accreditation standards. As of 1 March 2016, any GAC accredited program completing mandatory GAC reporting requirements, such as the annual report, substantive change request, review and approval of additional academic degrees after primary accreditation, must all follow the policies and guidelines contained in the 4th edition of the GAC Handbook. Additionally, as of 15 September 2016, all GAC accredited programs will follow and comply with the accreditation policies, guidelines, processes, requirements, and standards set forth in the GAC Accreditation Handbook 4.0. After speaking to what has changed, I thought it would be important to speak to what has remained the same. The actual process of GAC accreditation, such as the 4 steps of applying for accreditation, has not changed. Additionally, the fee structure has not changed. To learn more about the fee structure, as well as any other aspect of the GAC accreditation process and policies, I encourage you to visit the GAC booth in the virtual exhibit hall throughout the rest of today's event, or visit gacpm.org. I've mentioned throughout this presentation that you are welcome to contact the GAC with any questions, and this slide has a listing of specific contacts within the program, from the GAC chair to the GAC administrator. Thank you for attending today's event, and we will now move to the networking part of the presentation. We look forward to speaking with you. Thank you again.
Once again, we would like to thank you for attending this session. Today, we have Heather Ramsey, Manager of Academic Programs, Leslie Hyam, Accreditation Specialist, and myself, Ashley Walski, Accreditation Administrator, to answer any questions you may have. Looks like we have a few questions that have came in. Our first one is from Yvonne. How will the conversion from 7 to 5 years cycle applying to the programs which have been accredited in the last few years? Leslie?
Sure. As noted in the presentation, the previous standards had a 7-year accreditation cycle for accredited programs, a maximum of 7 years. The revised standards have a 5-year cycle. What will happen is any program that was accredited under the previous edition of the standards will complete the cycle, whatever length of time that was. But when the program goes through reaffirmation of accreditation using the new standards, that is when the 5-year maximum cycle would take place.
Okay, our next question is from Jeff. He asks, are annual reports due this March supposed to reflect the Handbook 4.0 or still use old Handbook for reference?
Well, the annual report should reflect the new standards. However, most of the information in that annual report is simply demographic information, such as number of enrolled students, number of graduates. If you were to have modified any of your program offerings and report that on the annual report, GAC would expect that that would address the 4.0 standards.
Jake has asked, has the process of accreditation changed with the release of the revised standards?
Well, as noted in the presentation, the 4 steps of accreditation has not changed, and there's simply no change.
Paul has asked, what resources related to the revised GAC accreditation standards are available?
Well, at this time, the GACPM website reflects all of the new templates that are required to address the standards revision 4.0. So if you were to go to the Apply for Accreditation page on gacpm.org, you would find the template for the letter of intent that addresses the revised standards, as well as the self-assessment report.
Okay, Jack has asked, we have a quality report due in March. Should we format using the new standard?
Okay, so Jack, I'm thinking that you're referring to the annual report that is due the end of March. Was sent to you recently was an online assessment tool that you would complete, and that would reflect the fourth edition of the standards. But as I mentioned earlier, again, most of that information that is reported is really demographic information just for the GAC to get a holistic view of how your program is doing.
Stephanie has asked, is there a chart comparing the previous and the revised GAC eligibility requirements and GAC accreditation standards available?
Yes, there is. It was noted in the presentation. We did show you the chart, but that is also posted on the GACPM website. There is a transition document posted on the home page. The bottom right corner, you'll see the link to the old standards 3.1, as well as a transition document that has that crosswalk that shows the connection between the new standards and the previous standards.
Dan has asked, who can I contact if I have specific questions about my program and the revision to the standards?
Well, of course, Dan, you can always contact us. The presentation did have our contact information. GAC@pmi.org is a good place to start. We'd also be very happy to have a teleconference with you to review any specific questions you have related to your program.
Stacy has asked, do you have any face-to-face workshops or accreditation information sessions coming up?
Well, yes, we do, and I'm really glad you asked that question, Stacy. This virtual event is great, but there's nothing better than a face-to-face meeting when specific answers can be reviewed and talked about. The next meeting that we have, an accreditation workshop, is planned for March 16th in Costa Rica. GAC has planned to offer presentations on both the overview to the process as well as the revisions throughout the world over the next year. March, as I mentioned, was Costa Rica, but we are also looking to make presentations in College Park, Maryland in the spring. In the summer, we're going to make a presentation in Dallas, Texas. And for the European region, we're looking at Paris, France in the summer, and also in the summer in Beijing, China. These dates are still just being finalized and will be posted on the GACPM website shortly, but of course we will reach out to all of the folks that have indicated that they're either interested in GAC accreditation or who are already accredited to let them know the specific dates once they're published.
Wonderful. Oksana has asked, what languages is the handbook available in?
Well, at this time, the handbook is published in English, but we have just worked on publishing it in Spanish, Portuguese, and Simple Chinese, and these are due to be released shortly and will also be posted on the GACPM website.
Candace has asked, I'm interested in becoming an on-site visitor. How would I go about becoming involved?
Well, GAC is always very interested in getting volunteers involved in the process. You could certainly send an email expressing your interest to gac@pmi.org or my email, leslie.hyam@pmi.org, and we'll send you an overview of the roles and responsibilities of the on-site visit process. There are, of course, a few documents that we'd ask you, confidentiality, non-disclosure forms that we'd ask you to complete. But anyone that is interested, we're very interested in having you apply.
Paul has asked, how often do the GAC directors meet to make GAC accreditation decisions?
The GAC directors meet monthly, usually via teleconference, and they make decisions on accreditation applications at monthly.
John has asked, how are on-site visitors selected?
Well, they apply. No, They apply, but we do have criteria for on-site visitors. As if you review the handbook, you'll see that on-site visit teams are composed of both project management practitioners as well as faculty from project management programs. So when the individual applicant sends in their information, we do a review to make sure that you meet the minimum standards. But then I think maybe the deeper part of that question is how are on-site visitors selected for a specific on-site visit? And this is a very good process where GAC looks at the type of program that's applying. Say it was an engineering program, so we would ensure that one of the on-site visitors, whether it was faculty or practitioner, has experience in the engineering field. And certainly every on-site visit has at least one faculty member, usually a PhD level, usually a program director within a program, and also a practitioner from the project management community. The third person can be both either a practitioner or a faculty member.
Great. Celine has asked, why was there a handbook revision?
Well, Celine, in all accreditation, well, in all standards development, as you must know with the PMBOK guide, that goes through a 5-year refresh process. Just as with any other standards, the GAC standards go through a refresh process, and it usually is at a 5 or 7 year cycle. The last time that the standards were revised was in 2008, and for the last 3 years, as noted in the presentation, we went through a very involved vetting process and review process to come out with these new standards.
Jordy has asked, my school is located outside the U.S. and we do not have regional accreditation. How do we meet the institutional accreditation and legal authority standard?
Well, that is an eligibility requirement that the GAC has in place, that an individual applicant program must have outside accreditation or authorization. Within the U.S., this is not an issue because most universities have something called regional accreditation. But outside of the U.S., many times the government replaces that regional accreditor. So we would look for documentation that shows that a government agency has reviewed and authorized the particular applicant program and has been accepted by this authority to offer degrees.
Guillermo has asked, is it mandatory to go to a face-to-face accreditation session if applying for GAC accreditation?
Although it's not mandatory to attend a face-to-face accreditation workshop, it certainly is encouraged. It's a great opportunity for individual applicants to interact with faculty, with GAC directors, with staff, and many times on-site visitors, so that you get great knowledge on the actual process, but also can pick the brains or talk to these different stakeholders to help you move forward in the process.
Well, thank you so much. It looks like those are all the questions that we have for now. Of course, as you're going through and looking over the handbook or our templates, we always encourage you to contact us directly. Leslie and I are more than happy to have that teleconference with you to answer any questions to make sure you're comfortable moving forward in our process. And again, we would like to thank all of you for attending our session today. I would like to remind you that we are having networking in the lounge after this session. If you're wondering about the PDU information, this is actually available in the resource tab, so you will want to stop there. And if you missed any of the sessions today, they will be available in a follow-up email you will be receiving. We certainly encourage you to pass along these sessions as a resource to colleagues and students that you think this would be valuable to. And thank you again. Have a wonderful day. We look forward to seeing you in the networking lounge. Thank you.
Thank you.